I'm Jazmin Novak. I'm Diné from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I attended the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and graduated 2021, and I've lived in Santa Fe since. I usually use glass and metal in my work. I studied bronze casting at IAI, and so yeah, most of my work it's shifting into glass, and now I'm combining the metal and the glass, and most of it is nature-based, so a lot of animals, a lot of landscape, and that's kind of the main influence for me. And I have like 6 animals, so I love animals, and yeah, it just kind of bleeds through in my work. I love the outdoors. I spent a lot of time outside growing up. Like I said, I do bronze and glass, and they're both cast, so it's a very intensive process on both of them. And so I do the lost wax process. So I start with a clay sculpture, do a mold, get a wax version, and then depending on whether it's glass or metal is kind of where that process starts to change. So the glass gets cast in a kiln, and so that's about a week process in the kiln. And you have to be an artist, an engineer, and a scientist when creating the work. So trying to balance, the vision versus what you can actually achieve, and then also just trying to get a successful cast. There's so much that goes into it. You're really working with heat and time and the weight of objects too. So you have to kind of know all of these processes in order to create a successful cast. And then the artist part comes in where you have the vision for the piece, and everything else kind of follows that. The Desert Stories is work that's all focused in the landscape or involves the desert, and so I have my animals, and Kelly's been doing some paintings, and yeah, so everything kind of revolves around here. Kelly's from here too, so all of our stories come from this area, come from our cultures, and yeah, just incorporating that throughout the work. And I'm gonna have some yucca flowers in my work too, so all different aspects of the desert. And I think in terms of like my appreciation for nature and animals and the people, that all comes from my indigenous culture, and really kind of focusing in on the landscape and how important it is. And without it we wouldn't have anything, and so just kind of celebrating that. I've been working on a new series that's called the Resilience series, and kind of came to a point in my life where I was at a couple crossroads, and so I was trying to decide which way I would go and what direction I would take, and kind of struggled internally with kind of how I wanted to present myself, and so trying to visually articulate that is kind of how the Resilience story came through. So thinking about the materiality of the piece, the glass is a really sensitive, fragile material, but then I incorporate it with the metal, which is the opposite. It's really strong. It'll last for centuries, very durable. And so bringing those two together kind of was fitting what I was feeling, right? It was that duality of these are both parts of me, and I just need to kind of figure out how to balance that, and kind of realize that I'm always going to struggle with my identity and these obstacles in life, and so kind of very personal, coming to terms with that. And so yeah, that's where the Resilience story came from, and the pieces. I always hope that people see the stories and they see the characters and the animals. And with the Closed Eyes series, I wanted to create a space that was calming and just peaceful, and allowed people to just take a second, take a deep breath and just kind of reflect and just step back from everything that's going on in the world, and just kind of like, have that space. I think the Resilience series is kind of the same way in terms of identity, and kind of realizing like, there's always going to be different parts of yourself and things that you might not agree with, but it still makes up the whole, you know, and if you have struggles, or if you have, you know, if you feel like you're missing parts, you can always find something, you know, to get you through those times. And so like the aluminum and the glass and bringing that all together is, you know, again, a visual metaphor of that. So yeah, I just hope people have time where they can just reflect on those, and yeah, create kind of a calming space. Yeah, I would just like to thank you, Michelle, at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center for having me, and Kelly for working on the show.